Welcome. The Eastham Conservation Commission will hold a remote public hearing on Tuesday, October 24th, 2023 at 6 p.m. pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, MGL Chapter 30A, Sections 18 to 25, Open Meeting Law, MGL Chapter 131, Sections 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and Chapter 155 of the Code of the Town of Eastham Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Before we start, I'm going to this meeting will be live streamed and will be rebroadcast on local access channel 8, as well as rebroadcast on the town website. I'm going to ask everybody please to stay muted unless it's your turn to speak, and to inform the chair if you are recording the meeting. Before we start, I'm going to take attendance. Janet Benjamins.
Here.
Greg Douglas.
Here.
Mike Harnett.
Here.
Chuck Wagner.
Here.
Karen Strauss, I am here. Joanne Cossett will be missing the meeting tonight. Okay, first up is a request for determination of applicability filed by Tom Collins. Applicant proposes water installation at property located at 10 Salt Marsh Way, map 20, parcel 094. The applicant previously submitted an RDA for this that we approved in August 2022 and has asked to withdraw this RDA request. So if I could please have a motion to accept the withdrawal.
Make a motion to accept the withdrawal.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Janet,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Next up is a request for determination of applicability filed by Carolyn Brandt Hoover. Applicant proposes to extend a deck at property located at 140 Ida Lane, map 16, parcel 018. And who's here to speak on that? Is it anybody? Alex? Do you know if anybody was going to come and talk about that filing?
I'm unsure if anyone was going to speak to this tonight,
Well, nobody seems to be.
but we did a site visit to the property this morning, so myself, Mike and Greg can speak to this.
Mhm. Okay, I do have a couple of questions for the applicants. Over, we could go ahead, or we could postpone it till later on in the agenda.
What questions do you have in mind?
Well, I was some of the ones you raised in the staff report, the wood post material, and whether there could be diamond pure footings, but also whether there might be any mitigation proposed. I realize it's
Okay.
only Cape Cod lawn, but
From what we saw
Okay.
during the site, on the site visit, we could certainly confirm this at another meeting. It looked like the posts on the existing deck were on cinder block footings. So I'm not sure if the applicant proposes to do the same for this project or not.
so Mike or Greg, did you have any comments you wanted to make on this?
No, actually, I
No.
just assumed that they were going to do the same installation on cinder blocks.
Right.
Yeah, but the filing doesn't actually say that. Either,
Correct.
I think. Yeah. So I'm gonna propose that we continue this to the next hearing, and the applicant can come answer a few questions or provide the information to Alex in the meantime. So if
Yeah, I'll
nobody
make a
objects.
motion. You want to make a motion to continue this to the next meeting?
which would be, that would be November 14th.
Okay, continue this to November 14th.
And we have a second,
Second,
okay, Janet,
yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes,
Chuck,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. Next up is an administrative review filed by Kate Levy. Applicant proposes to place a memorial bench at the edge of Widow Harding Pond at property located at 1150 Herringbrook Road, map 13, parcel 80. So this is the Nickerson Conservation Area. And before we ask the applicant if the applicant is here and has anything to say, as far as I understand, the Conservation Commission has in place a moratorium on memorial benches that has been in place for a while that I think we would need to discuss before we could possibly approve this. It came through initially as an application to put a bench on a beach, and there was a little confusion whether that meant the Conservation Commission would have to do more than look at an RDA, and the select board would get to do any follow-up, but it's on the conservation land, and therefore it's our show, so to speak. I had a discussion with Nicole Payne and Lori Gillespie Lee about memorial benches earlier this year, as the issue had come up at a site visit at Sandy Meadow. And it seems like the protocol would be that that we or the town would select a couple of different designs that we thought would be appropriate for the locations in the areas that we respectively have custom and control over. And the usual method is that the applicant would pick one of those benches, pay the town for the cost of the bench, and then Natural Resources or DPW would install it and continue with the maintenance. So the Open Space Committee has been discussing benches also at the Nickerson area, and some of the existing ones need to be relocated or ending their lifetime, but I don't think that we're quite ready to make a decision on whether the new bench should go in or not, but you guys might have a different thought. I'm proposing that we continue this discussion at a work session and make some decisions. With apologies to the applicant for the confusion. Anybody have any comments? Janet?
Yes, I think that's a wise decision. We can't really continue it to a certain date because we don't know when the moratorium will be lifted.
Mhm.
So wouldn't we have to know that first?
Well, we'd have to make that decision first because
Okay.
it's our decision.
So do we just say continued to sometime in the future? How do we state that?
I'm not sure. Hillary,
Oh,
do you
Hillary.
have some suggestions here?
Yeah, you're just gonna want to continue it indefinitely. And then after you hold your meeting, your work session and talk about the moratorium, we can then be back in touch with the applicant and let them know.
Okay, and if in the meantime, one of you could reach out to the applicant and express our,
Yep. Absolutely.
yeah, sorry for the confusion. Okay, so if I could have a motion to continue indefinitely,
Move to continue indefinitely.
and a second?
second,
Okay, Janet,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mike,
yes,
Chuck,
No.
and I am a yes. Can I ask Chuck why it's a no?
I can't imagine why putting a bench in is this complicated or why there's a moratorium to begin with. I think we should just say yes and let them do it.
Okay, but there is one in place. We have to decide whether to lift it and There are protocols for how the bench gets installed that need to be worked out before we can.
Piece of paper somewhere stating this?
I'm sorry, what?
Is there a piece of paper or a filing somewhere stating that this moratorium is in place that explains the reason behind it?
The reason was given that from my understanding was that there were sufficient benches in the areas that were suitable. And that's why the decision was made. I was not obviously involved in the decision, or I could give you more information. But this is information coming from the administrative assistant to the town manager.
Right.
Okay, and it would be
Okay, well-
helpful if I asked for comments before we call a vote, if you might speak up at that point. Okay, so it's continued indefinitely, and moving on to the next one, which is the certificate of compliance filed by Jean E. Kilgore for SE 19-1697 for shower placement, installation of stone patio, replacement of retaining wall, removal of brick and timber steps, installation of retaining structure with regrading, replacement of fencing, removal of trees, and mitigation of property located at 300 Goody Howard Drive, map 20, parcel 23. And we had discussed this at a previous hearing that in-ground insulation needed to be removed. My understanding, Alex, is that has happened.
Correct. Ponderosa went through and removed the in-ground irrigation and used conservation seed mix over top any disturbed areas. They did a really clean job with this project and looked pretty good during the site visit this morning. So this was the only hangup with the certificate of compliance. So I would certainly recommend issuing one for this project.
Okay, any questions or comments from the commission? Okay, if I could have a motion, please.
Make a motion that we approve.
Okay, a
Second.
second. Okay, Janet,
Yes,
Greg,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes,
Chuck,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. Motion carries. Next up is notice of intent filed by Charles Harvey. Applicant proposes to remove 2 existing structures, build a 2-car garage with an accessory dwelling unit with a driveway, and replace the septic tank at property located at 10 Nicholson Road, map 14, parcel 021. You might remember this property. It was before us in August 22 with an administrative review where the applicant came to discuss any possible issues before spending money on developing plans. And we had asked for a wetlands delineation and expressed concern over the number of structures, both of which I think were addressed in this filing. And having said that, who is here to speak on this project? I think it
Hi,
was-
good evening. Stephanie
Hi.
Sequin here. Can you
Hi,
hear me okay?
Stephanie. Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie Sequin with Roder and Wilcox. I'm representing Elizabeth Harvey and Christopher Healy, who are the owners of the property. Also with me here this evening, I don't know if you can see him, is Charlie Harvey, who is Liz Harvey's father. So Liz and Chris are the owners of the property at 10 Nickerson Road, which is located at the corner of Samoset Road. It's a just under 50,000 square foot lot. There is a wooded swamp that's located just off the west property line. That wetland was flagged by Paul Shea of Independent Environmental Consultants. He put up 7 or 8 flags. We located them. along with doing a topographic survey of the property and develop the existing site plan. The 100-foot buffer from the BVW covers at least half of the property, the westerly portion of the property. On the east side of the property, there's on the abutting Nickerson Road, there's an N-Star easement that covers a good swath of that front part of the property, leaving just a very narrow strip that's outside of the 100-foot buffer and outside of that N-Star easement. There's an existing 2-bedroom house with attached garage. According to assessor's records, the house was built in 1962. There are several outbuildings and storage structures sort of spread out throughout the property. In 2013, the septic system was upgraded with a new leaching system. That was done just prior to the transfer to the current owners. And the existing leaching system was oversized at the time to allow for 4 bedrooms, even though it's only a 2-bedroom house currently. What's being proposed now is a detached garage with living 2-bedroom ADU above. Mr. Harvey, Charlie Harvey, has an adult son who is disabled and currently has a rental, but he's on a fixed income. And the cost of that rental has increased to a point where it's becoming unsustainable for him. So Mr. Harvey is trying to create a living situation for his son that will allow him to continue to live independently, but also affordably. So what is, as I said, being proposed here is a detached garage with the 2-bedroom ADU above, where Chris Harvey will occupy that. The proposed structure is 40 feet by 26 feet or 1,040 square feet. There's a shed and a storage structure where this proposed building is located, and obviously those structures will be removed. We are going to replace the existing 1,000-gallon septic tank with a new septic tank that will incorporate a microfast treatment system. A microfast, I'm sure you're familiar with it, is a DEP-approved innovative alternatives system that reduces nitrogen, among other things. Along with that new nitrogen reducing component, we'll install a pump chamber, which will pump the effluent to the existing soil absorption system. So both buildings will be tied into this new nitrogen reducing technology. So I think that is a huge benefit to not just this resource area, but just resource areas in general. The proposed building, as I said, there's kind of a tight squeeze between the buffer to the wetland and the other features of the property. We've
Yeah.
positioned the proposed.
Excuse me a minute. Richard and Eileen DeVito, could you, you have muted since, please, and I would like to ask everybody to please keep muted while other people are speaking. Thank you. Sorry, Stephanie.
Okay, thank you. The proposed garage ADU is approximately 51 feet from the BVW. I'm holding it just the 10-foot minimum from the existing leaching system. If it weren't for the location of that leaching system, we could push it further away from the wetland, but unfortunately, we're trying to hold that 10-foot minimum from the existing leaching field. I've included our typical construction notes on the site plan, showing a limit of work as close as possible to the proposed structure to minimize the amount of disturbance. Fabric silt fence will be staked in place along the limit of work prior to construction and will remain until all the disturbed areas have been revegetated. I've specified that all roof runoff will be contained through probably crushed stone at the roof drip line would be what would be used here. The proposed driveway will be constructed of permeable material. All disturbed areas will be restored upon completion of construction. So that's I think all I have as far as the project description. Just so you're aware, this does require Board of Health approval for the IA technology. It will also require residential site plan review from the planning board, and or we haven't quite sorted out, it may require going to the zoning board of appeals. So we do have a few other boards to go through, but you are our first step. So I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm going to start with the wetlands delineation. I noticed that we didn't get a lot of detail on how that was performed. The report says that it was done during the summer dry season, but I wanted to note that it was actually during a level 2 to 3 drought, the third consecutive drought in 3 summers. And I'm not quite sure how that might have impacted the delineation. So if you could provide us with some details on how the delineation was conducted, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. You did read the report from Paul Shea, right?
There was a letter from Paul Shea, but it didn't really detail how the delineation was conducted.
Okay.
And we usually get a little more information than that. So there's that. And then there was a question about possibly pulling the new structure further out of the 0 to 50. I realize that might be difficult because of the power line right of way. Have you considered other? You said you couldn't move it back a little bit because of the leaching field and so on. Have you considered relocating it to the other side of the dwelling, the existing dwelling? Perhaps?
Relocating the ADU?
Yes.
Have we looked at that? I think there's vegetation along Samoset Road that they're hoping to just, as a buffer to traffic on that road, which, does get a lot of traffic moving very fast. And so I think that's the reason for not putting the ADU over there.
Okay. Yeah. So also, I did notice that the limit of work on the corner of where the existing structures are seems to cut through the structures and not quite around them. And so I have a little bit of a list. I don't see deconstruction plans for the existing structure, so it would be helpful if we could have those, and also a more detailed construction protocol for the new structure going in. I have a question about the vegetation that would be removed to put the new structure in place. And also as part of that, I'm taking it that you're thinking of the IA system as mitigation. Are you proposing any other mitigation at this time?
The IA, I think, certainly is a worthwhile mitigation. I'm sure there will be there are several mature trees that are within the footprint of either the driveway or the building itself. They will have to come down. the site is, with the exception of the lawn where the leaching system is, the site is pretty heavily vegetated with mature trees, shrubs. I'm not sure where, if we were to propose some replacement trees, quite honestly, I'm not sure where they would go because it is
Mhm.
it is pretty well vegetated currently.
Mhm. Okay, so I think what we need to see that are not on the plans, details about which trees are going to be removed and what other vegetation is going to be removed. We normally require mitigation of 2 to 1, but I can see that might be a problem here. Maybe think about some shrubbery or something. Yeah. Oh, and then I have a question about the driveway. I don't see on the plans where the driveway is coming into the new garage and ADU structure.
You're wondering where the driveway is going to be?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not really called out, but there are 2 lines between the garage and Nickerson Road. So directly south of the proposed building is where the driveway will be.
Okay, I do see those lines and I do see a couple of oak trees
Yep,
smack in the middle of that. So I think we need to see, as I said, the trees listed that are going to come out and also some details on the driveway. You said it will be permeable material. Do you know what specifically you're planning there?
do you have anything in mind for the driveway surface? Just crushed stone?
I would think that native stone.
Okay, so
3/4 inch native stone.
I'm not
Okay,
sure if
we
you're native stone.
Yeah, and we need to have that in the plans. as
Okay.
well. Let's see, and then materials and equipment storage, where is that going to be during the work? If that be added to the plans as well.
Okay, so I
And-
can work all that into a construction protocol
Mhm.
for you.
Okay, and really just because it makes it easier as we're trying to look at the plans and pull out our rulers and stuff. If you could include a graphic scale bar on the plans, I think that would help a lot
Okay,
as well. And I think that's kind of me. Mike, I see your hands up.
Yes, it's just with the driveway. It looked to us like you'd have to put a ramp. There's a pretty good drop from,
Mhm.
so is there a plan for a ramp and how you'd change? So that will affect the water flow,
Yeah.
with pipes in there or something?
So I think we will have to fill in that dip that's between the shoulder of the road and where the garage is going. Yeah,
So you're gonna put that in the details?
okay, yes.
Any other questions? Janet? And then
Yes.
Alex.
Um, I just wanted to reiterate what you had said. I had a question about moving the garage also to the north side of the house. And I did not realize that Eversource's right-of-way extended so far into the property. That would make it a little difficult to do that. But I would obviously prefer if the garage were moved out of the 100 on the north side of the house. Secondly, if it stays where it is, there are some decent sized trees that are being removed. And I would like to see some mitigation for that.
Anything else, Janet?
That's it. Thank you.
Alex?
So after doing the site visit this morning, it became more clear to me why the proposed garage is located where it is. When you're looking at the plan, it seems like there's a lot of space to work with, but given the topography and quite frankly, how heavily vegetated this plot is, I understand why the proposed location is where it's at. And just a second, what's kind of already been said, I know there's a couple additional trees within the limit of work that will be removed. I think there were some hollies back there, maybe some smaller oaks. So if we can have those indicated on the plan, that'd be beneficial. And then as what's already been mentioned, if there's some area on the property where some mitigation could be done to offset the square footage of clearing that will be needed to be done for this ADU, that would be beneficial as well.
Anybody else?
Oh,
Janet again?
I'm sorry, I forgot to say this. I really want to compliment them, and I know it's for their own reasons, but compliment them on the idea of an accessory dwelling unit. We're hearing so much on the Cape and in Massachusetts about there not being enough affordable housing, and it makes sense to do something like this where there's a space to do it. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, it may be a dumb question. Is it possible to do low-level mitigation in the easement area? I don't know.
Providing mitigation within the N-Star easement, you mean? Yeah.
I would doubt it.
Yeah, Mike, I can address that. I did look at Eversource's right-of-way guidelines, and they really don't want anything in there.
Okay,
And it was something that also came up when we were working on the T-time plans. As there's a big right-of-way in the back of that property as well. So they don't want anything there. They don't want structures. They don't want you to put your septic underneath. They really want you to leave it alone. Because they really have to have access for their equipment to come in and out for maintenance and repairs. So, and anything that would go in there, they might actually remove. So,
okay.
okay, Alex, you're muted, Alex.
Thank you. I also wanted to compliment the applicant for their septic system too, because they've gone above and beyond with that for this project.
Yes, and I wanted to second that. I had a note to mention that, and I forgot to say that, and we really appreciate that effort. So no more questions. Stephanie, are you clear what we're looking for?
I think so. I've got a lot to add to this, but I fully expected that. So we don't have a file number anyway. So what's your next available hearing date?
November 10th, and then the 28th after that.
Okay, if we could go for the November 10th hearing.
Okay, Alex?
I believe it's the 14th. not
Oh,
the
I'm
10th.
sorry. You're right, the 14th. Sorry about that. So the
Okay.
14th. That gives you a couple more days even.
I'll take them.
Okay. You might need them. Okay, so if I could have a motion to continue this to November 14th, 2023.
Move to
So-
continue to November 14th, 2023.
And a second,
Second,
okay, Janet,
Yes,
Mike,
yes,
Greg,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Um,
very much.
Next up is a notice of intent filed by FinTen Sealy. Applicant proposes installation of a new pier ramp and float system at property located at 40 Ellis Road, map 22, parcel 017. And who's here to speak on that?
Hello, this is Paul Mancuso. I am a wetland scientist from the BSC group. Here to present the proposed project at 40 Ellis Road in Eastham on behalf of the owner, Bintan Sealy. Would you like me to share my screen, or do you all have the plan in front of you?
We have the plans, but I think it might be helpful if we have them up on the screen while you talk.
Sure.
Uh,
Does that work?
yes, it does. If you can
All
make
right.
it bigger, though, we're seeing,
Yep.
yeah,
Okay, so the proposed project is a pier ramp and float into the waters of Orleans Cove. We have designed the pier to be situated in the one area where there will be no impacts to salt marsh on the property. There is salt marsh on either side, but there's a little break right here, so that's why we have situated in this location. There will be, I believe there are 32 pilings, which will result in 25 square feet of impacts to land underwater. And there will be a small area of impacts right here on the shore within the coastal bank buffer and in the flood zone for the stairs up to the pier ramp and float. We checked the bylaw and I don't think there are any specific regulations for piers or docks. So we designed this as we would for some of the other towns we've worked in. But essentially we brought it out to this far so that at mean low water, which is about minus 3.8, the float will have about 3.5 feet of water so that the boat will not be resting on the ground at low tide. To construct the pier, that will be done at high tide to prevent any equipment from resting on the sea floor, again, to minimize impacts. And that's about it. It's a 160-foot long pier out to a ramp and float in the waters of Orleans Cove. And that's about it. If anyone on the commission or in the public has questions, I would be happy to answer them.
oh, thank you. You could stop sharing your screen.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to start. I have a couple of questions. Have you performed a shellfish survey and have you asked for a DMF review?
What was the second part of the?
DMF review?
Yeah, we submitted to DMF. I emailed them the day we submitted on October 6th and told them the hearing date, and they told me they would get back by this time, but we have not heard back. We have not performed a shellfish survey on the property. That could be done. One other thing, we could relocate shellfish in the pier location prior to construction, if that would be suitable.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to want a shellfish survey before we discuss relocation or impacts or mitigation or anything related to that. It would be helpful. Yeah. Okay. And we might ask our shellfish constable as well to take a look. And another concern is that I don't really think that you addressed in detail the performance standards for the various resource areas that are included in this project, and it would be helpful if you might write something up for us before the next hearing.
And the performance standards for
land under ocean, land containing shellfish, salt marsh, coastal bank, land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're not proposing any impacts to salt marsh. We can definitely address the performance standards, but there are no proposed impacts there, and we can address land under ocean and land containing shellfish.
But there is salt marsh where the work is going to go on.
There is salt marsh there's like a vertical seawall along the property, but there's a section where there is no salt marsh, and that is where we're proposing the pier. So there would be no direct impacts to salt marsh. We are also proposing the pier to be, I forget exactly what it was, but about 5 feet above the water surface. So that will give a height above water to width ratio of greater than 1:1, as is recommended by DEP's standard for piers and docks to allow sufficient sunlight beneath the dock to minimize any, or there should be no shading impacts by constructing it in that manner. It will be adjacent salt marsh, so we can definitely address those performance standards as well.
Yeah, because even if it's not salt marsh, it's in the buffer to salt marsh.
Yep.
And okay, and then I think we'd like to see you address the possibility of shared dock use for an existing dock already in the area. The bylaw does speak to that. And that shared docks should be used as much as possible. So if you might address that as part of an alternatives analysis or in some way for us.
Okay, sure.
And then just the question of whether what size boat would be used here and how much scouring there might be from that.
Yep. Yeah, I do not have the information on the boat they're looking to use, but I can get that and make sure that the draft on the boat won't be greater than the water depth that we're proposing.
Okay, just noting that a 50 horsepower engine will affect something at least 15 feet down. So land under water at least 15 feet down. So we'd just like to hear a little bit about how this would impact. Again, land under ocean. Okay. I think that's it for my questions for now. I know, Mike, you have your hand up.
It's about the seawall you mentioned. It looked a little bit old. Is there any plans to do any repair work to it, fix it up?
Not that I've heard, no. I can speak with the homeowner, but they did not come to us with any proposal of repairing that.
Okay, and I did notice that you're right next to Goose Hummock. Is there any traffic? Is there anything would this affect traffic or anything going by?
I don't believe so. The homeowner told us they did speak with the owner next door, and they said they had no problem with it, and it would be no issue to them. I mean, this is what I heard. I did not speak to them myself, but they did not have any issue with the project.
Okay.
Just if I could follow up on that for a minute. I did notice that there were a number of moorings marked on the plan pretty close to the dock. So what's the impact of the dock on those existing moorings?
I wouldn't think there would be any impact. I did see the moorings on the plan, but I don't think that the boats there will be. I don't think, say, the tides change, their boats would not be sort of drifting over towards the pier. I think we've spaced it out far enough. We can get confirmation from that, but I'm pretty sure we've oriented it so that we're far enough away from the mooring so that there would be no impact from whatever boat is there.
Okay, just seemed like a good question to ask. Alex, you had something?
I did speak to the harbor master regarding this project, and he stated the dock as proposed at this length would not affect traffic through Town Cove because it's sited pretty far away from the channel. I just wanted to mention that. But I did have a kind of a follow-up question on the proposed length. Are there any potential alternatives that could shorten the length of the dock? And I guess I'm curious as to why is the dock proposed to be 165 feet? Are you trying to get out to a certain depth?
Yeah, I was talking to the engineer this afternoon about I had the same question. It did seem a bit long, but just with the topography there, the float itself, the far end of the float is ranging between 7 and 7.5, minus 7 and 7.5 feet. Mean low water is about minus 3.8, so that gives about 3.5 feet or 3 to 3.5 feet of water at low tide. So the boats wouldn't be resting on the surface. And if you look at the contour lines in the plan, it's a pretty I guess not steep slope closer to land. As you get out a bit, it starts to, the topography changes quicker. And if we were to shorten it, we would quickly lose a couple feet of depth, in which case then you'd only have about 1 foot of water at low tide, and the boat would probably end up resting on the ground at low tide. So we basically brought it out there just to get enough water depth at low tide, so the boat wouldn't be sitting on that seafloor.
Janet? Or Alex, did you have something further? You're muted.
There we go. I'm not necessarily following up on a prior question, so I can go after Janet.
Okay, Janet?
Yes, I share several of the concerns that were already mentioned. The shellfish survey, a study by the Division of Marine Fisheries, the scouring that would occur, the length of the dock, but also especially having a shared dock. I think that is something that would be wise to look into, especially since they're considering something that is so long.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can definitely talk with the engineer and the applicant. Maybe there's a way we could have like a longer float or something so that the fixed pier isn't quite as long. I think they do kind of need to get out to that water depth for the boat not to be resting on the seafloor. And I'll definitely talk to the applicant about a shared dock or potential. I don't know if he's spoken to his neighbors, and I know the marina next door has one, but the residents next door, I'm not sure if he's met with them yet, but we can definitely look into that.
Anybody else? Chuck, anything?
No, my questions have been covered by others.
Okay, Greg? Anything? No?
Nope, I'm all set.
Okay, Alex,
Uh,
you had something. Oh. Was that a yes? You had something, Greg, or?
No,
Okay,
I'm all set right now.
okay, Alex?
A couple items that I think would be beneficial to add to the site plan. If we could add a limit of work, material storage area, and then I believe this project is within the proximity of some NHESP priority habitat, and if we can have that delineated on the plan as well, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yep.
So I think, are you clear on, Paul, are you clear on what we're looking for?
Yep. Yeah, I've been taking notes. I think I got it all. We can definitely make those changes. We can do a shellfish survey. We can speak with the client about potentially shared use dock or maybe shortening it and or finding a way to get out to the water depth less of a shorter fixed pier. We'll figure out what size boat will be there and any issues with boat scouring. I think ideally that leaving the dock, they would be traveling at a pretty slow speed until they get out into the channel. I heard you say something about 15 feet of scour below, I forget what size motor, but they would not be using the motor full capacity to dock and, you know, come right up to that area. But I do understand your concern. But I think I've got it all and address the performance standards as well.
And when would you like to come back? Our next meeting is the November 14th, and after that, the 28th.
Yeah, I think we should be able to do that by the 14th. I would expect Natural Heritage or DMF's comments back by then. As I said, I emailed them on the 6th, and they told me they would have their comments due before the 24th. But we've got some work cut out, so it's fine that we're still waiting on that. I did check. Also, don't have the file number, but that should be hopefully coming soon because we also submitted on the 6th.
Alex, you had something?
There we go. I just wanted to mention that our agenda for the 14th is becoming pretty full. So if the applicant's okay with pushing it to the 28th, I think that would be beneficial.
And that would give a little more time to get the shellfish survey done and also have our shellfish
Yeah.
constable take a look. Okay,
Yeah, that's fine. We can do that. That will give us a little time to do the shellfish survey, although we'll probably try to get out there sooner rather than later before it gets too cold, but.
Yeah, I don't think it would be much fun doing it as it gets much colder.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I could have a motion, please, to continue this to November 28th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to continue this project till November 28th.
And do I have a second? Okay, Janet,
Yes,
Mike,
Yes,
Chuck,
Yes,
Greg,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Thank you so much. We'll see you
Yep.
in a few weeks.
Thanks.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, next up is a notice of intent filed by Timothy Baker. Applicant proposes to relocate an existing single-family dwelling with an elevated dock at property located at 305 Nauset Light Beach Road, map 23, parcel 0 and 8. And who's here to speak on that? I think it was Lynn Hamlin.
Yes, good evening. Haven't seen you in a while. This application is for a project proposed as just described. The resource areas out there are land subject to coastal storm flowage. There's a V zone at the base of the very obvious coastal bank, if you were there, which is eroding at approximately a rate of 6 feet per year. Some years it goes along and it's pretty stable, and then sometimes there's episodic events. I think one year I saw 20 feet, but it's an average of 6 feet a year. So what the applicant's trying to do is buy some time for the house. So they're simply moving it away from the resource area. The foundation to be constructed will be a pile foundation, so it eliminates excavation, both not to disturb the property and to potentially would have potentially disturbed the abutter property. They're moving the house back within 2 feet of that property line, which will require a variance from the ZBA, which I believe has been filed for. There are a couple attorneys in attendance here that have worked out that agreement between the two property owners. And there's a list of conditions. I don't think any of them are pertinent to wetlands interests, but if they want to talk about them, I'll leave it to them to do so. The methodology is to, of course, install your work limit line, your erosion control barrier first, to clear the vegetation in the area of the new location, which if you're out there, it's very stilted, mostly black cherry that are not doing really well because of their location. There's a lot of invasive species there as well. There's some Japanese honeysuckle, some bittersweet, but that will be cleared out, and then they'll install the pile foundation, and then they'll move the house to the new location, remove the existing foundation that needs to get out of there so it doesn't go falling down the hill when the bank eventually erodes back to that location, and backfill the hole. And then I've proposed mitigation in the form of coastal seed mix at the top of the coastal bank. I didn't want to put anything more than that because I didn't want to disturb the soils that much. And it's time. This isn't going to last long enough for you to get a woody forest there. So I was just trying to add some native species for the duration of the project. And I think I'll stop there and see if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll start with the mitigation, if that's where you ended. I was wondering if some woody shrubs wouldn't actually help provide more stability along that edge.
It's
rather than just
eroding
grass.
from the bottom. So
Mhm.
anything you do on the top isn't going to do anything. As a matter of fact, I'm sure you were out there today. I think you went out
Well,
today.
I'm not actually mobile at the moment. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was
Somebody
not,
out
but
there
I'm well aware of that area. We've been
The
out there a
collective
lot.
view. The collective
Yeah.
view. were out
Well,
there.
I wasn't out there, but I think Alex and Mike and Greg are out there, but
But it's even, there's a shelf.
Uh-huh.
I was even a little nervous to walk too far out there.
Mhm.
So anything you put at the top isn't going to stabilize that bank. What I was going for was to add some wildlife benefit and
Mhm.
some for the bugs and bees and whatnot, and replace lawn because commissions always like lawn replaced.
Right, so more meadow even than shrubs.
Yeah, I just think it's just a waste, and I wouldn't want to be further destabilizing it in order to naturalize it.
Okay, that sounds pretty reasonable to me. But all this work, and maybe they'll get 10 years out of it. Maybe if they're lucky, they'll get more, or maybe a lot less.
I don't know.
It seems like a lot of work for just a few years.
Well, I mean, you have to do something.
Mhm.
And it makes sense. They're not going to knock it down and build a new house. It's simply taking the structure that's there and pushing it back as far as they can.
Okay, and if you could just run through, I did read the materials, but if you could run through for me, what's being used for the piles and how the house is going to be moved? Is it going to be a crane? Is it going to be how is the house going to be moved?
Typically, they lift it up and roll it back. They have
Uh-huh.
machinery to do that. I didn't consult a house mover. I've seen it done before. I don't believe it'd be a crane. I believe they
Mhm.
have jacks and then they roll it back, is my belief.
Okay, I think we'd like to have that information
Okay,
as part of the plan here. I think it's important for us to understand all the moving parts of how this is going to work. I think that's it for me for the moment. Mike?
Just a couple things. One, we noticed the house currently has pressure treated deck on on the ground, and some of the pilings and things are in the ground. If that could be, it's when you move it, if you could elevate that stuff off the ground. And as far as the banks go, down in the bank it looks like old well pipes and things. Can they be taken out? And there's some plastic pipe debris in the bank, and there's a black hose connected to something. If all that could be removed. And on the other side of the fence, there's a couple of big, heavy concrete planters that are gonna go right over the edge at any minute, if those could be taken up. And the fence, I don't know how you plan to move it, if they could just cut it instead of digging it out. I mean, it's right near the edge, and I don't know if holes would make it even less stable. When you move the split rail back.
yeah, anything you do at the top there isn't really going to have any impact on that bank eroding. It's eroding from the bottom.
I know, but okay, so you're saying it's okay.
I mean, I don't know what the status of the fence is. Maybe it's rotted. I don't know the status of the fence, but I mean, if you're comfortable, it's not a deal breaker. So if you want to condition it a particular way, I'd be a little nervous. I saw those big pipes sticking out of the side of the bank, and I don't know how far into the bank they go. And I don't think anybody should be bringing machinery or crawling on that bank too much. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, maybe a condition that as best as you can or as feasible without causing more.
If they can
erosion,
take it
that would be
out,
fine.
I guess I'd accept that. If they could take it out, it'd be preferred.
Right.
Right.
I agree. Mhm.
And definitely those big planters that are right on the edge, pull them
I
back.
noticed that. Yes, I did. They were too heavy for me to move. I was trying to poke away at them today, but I couldn't move them.
Yeah, no, yeah, they're heavy. I think that's it. The pressure treated and the stuff on the bank. Oh, yeah, if you could, when they take out, I think Alex was gonna touch on this, when they take out move it back, where you have all that gravel for the driveway that spins around, if that could be used more for mitigation. You can increase the mitigation area.
That's how they get in and out. It's around in a circle. You can't really back out too easily. So that's their turnaround.
Okay. Okay, I'm done.
We're gonna go to Alex and then Greg and then back to me because I forgot to ask an important question. Go ahead. Alex.
Yeah, I was also gonna kind of touch on what Mike said, if there's any options for during this project to increase the square footage of the mitigation area. I think that would be beneficial. I certainly understand what you're coming at when it comes to not planting shrubbery and sticking to more of an early successional meadowy habitat. That's still very much beneficial for the pollinators and the insects. And now that you've mentioned it, when I first looked at the satellite imagery, I thought potentially that, moving the house back would make a portion of that shell drive obsolete, but if they're still using it to turn around, I certainly understand that. I had a couple of things that I think would be beneficial to add to the site plan. If we could add a material and equipment storage area and then an equipment access area. And then if we do come to an agreement to increase the mitigation square footage tonight, an updated square footage on that would be beneficial.
Anything else, Alex? Greg?
Yes, I was curious as to how deep is the existing foundation on that house? And does anything need to be done to stabilize the hole when you're finished? When you move it back, you're going to end up with a hole. I'm just curious what you're going to do with it.
Going to remove the foundation. I don't know. I believe it's a full foundation, but somebody listening might be able to correct me if I'm wrong. And so the methodology statement, you want to remove that foundation. Typically you would crush it and backfill it. But I think in this particular location, again, unless somebody disagrees with that, I think it should be removed to prevent it from eventually someday falling over the bank, and then fill the whole hole, and then obviously bloom it over and seed it with some native grasses.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
So we're going to need to see all of that kind of written up for us, so we have the details to study. And my question that I forgot to ask earlier was, what about the septic system? Does that have to be moved as well? Is that?
No, it's just a tight tank.
Mhm.
So that's what it is. And it's luckily up close to the back property line to begin with. So that can stay right there.
Okay. Janet, you had a question?
Yes, do we have to get any more information about the pilings that will be used?
I gave you a little schematic. Did you note that in the application of the piling layout?
Do we have to know the materials that are being used? That's a question. I'm not sure of that. Karen, Alex, Hillary? I don't know.
Well, usually we get all of that information. What's the material for the pilings? The pilings have to comply with our pressure treated and chemically treated wood policy. So if it's PT or chemically treated wood, it can't come in contact with the ground. I think Mike talked about that a little earlier with the PT wood for the deck. So
Thank you.
if you could add that to the list of details we'd like to have.
Okay.
Anything else? Chuck, you have anything?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay. So I think, Lynn, you're pretty clear what we're asking.
So I have here my list, equipment storage area, access area. You want the piling materials. Are you happy with the mitigation area? I was a little nervous about disturbing existing vegetation the more I thought about it, but then there's the balance of doing mitigation. So I was trying to split the difference and give what I thought was a reasonable amount of mitigation. I didn't want to destabilize, because to do it properly, you need to strip the lawn and then reseed it. And I didn't want to leave a lot of area exposed, but whatever you want, you should tell me.
Well, I think I'm actually okay with the meadow idea because it seems like this is a fairly short-lived piece of property. And that it makes sense not to disturb the top of the bank any further. I don't know, anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so
Did I miss something on my list?
we just asked for more construction details and how the house would be moved and
Oh, that's
Um,
right, that's right. Yeah.
and you're gonna be, what you're gonna be doing with the foundation and what fill material is gonna be used if you're filling in
Okay, I just
the
specified.
area.
Okay.
And specifics about the nature of the piles, the new pile.
I
Right.
have that. Yes, I have
Yes,
that.
she,
Thank you.
she had that. Okay, so if you're as you might have overheard earlier that the November 14th one is pretty full, would you be okay with a November 28th continuance?
As other people listening, if I might be so bold that if I get you all this information, I don't think there's much more to talk about. I think you're just looking to tighten up the details. So I don't think it would take a lot of time. Am I wrong?
I don't know. Alex, what do you think? Is there room to squeeze this in on the 14th?
I would strongly encourage the 28th if possible.
Then I guess it's a 20.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so accommodating.
So that's November, clearly.
November 28th.
Okay.
Yes. So if I might have a motion to continue to November 28th, 2023.
Move to continue to November 28th, 2023.
And a second.
Second,
Okay, Janet,
Yes.
Mike,
yes.
Chuck,
Yes,
Greg,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, thank you, Lynn.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next up, continuation of notice of intent filed by 235 Shirtlift Road Realty Trust, Richard and Lori DeVito Revocable Trust, and Marcella Gumbel. Applicant proposes to construct a rock revetment and beach access stairs at property located in between 205 and 265 Shirtlift Road, map 07, parcels 195 and 191. And before we get started, I just want to kind of sum up where we are and how we got to here. So as you may remember, we on September 24th, we voted to close the hearing, and there was a tie vote. So this resulted in a denial. One of the reasons for the denial was that the applicants were not providing revised revetment plans before the vote. They since came back and asked us to reopen the hearing. We discussed that at our last meeting, and we voted to agree to allow them to do that. And tonight we're going to be talking about keeping the discussion to the specific changes made in regard to the DMF request, and to we had asked also for deconstruction protocols for the sandbags in front of 235. And having said that, who's going to be speaking tonight?
Here, it's Don Monroe from Coastal Engineering. So thank you for reopening the hearing. And after review and contemplation, we came up with a revised plan based on the DMF letter, where we brought the toe of the revetment landward closer to the existing coastal bank. And then we also prepared a construction protocol addressing the concern about the concern raised in the DMF letter about access over the intertidal and nourishment access when nourishment's placed. So we described in detail that we would stay out of the intertidal as much as practicable as they asked in the DMF letter, as well as staging any materials not on the intertidal area, more in the upland. And with that, I didn't realize that we were supposed to have a deconstruction on the sandbag, but that would be easily put into an order in the order conditions, because we would obviously, because they're in the way, just take the sandbag material with an excavator, remove that. The sand would stay behind because we could use that on the site, but remove the material that's associated with the bags, as well as take out the any remaining piling structures that were left behind due to the destroyed sand drift fence. I can share the screen and show the plan, but I think we submitted plans to you, but that's up to you folks if you want me to bring it up on the screen.
Does anybody want to see it up on the screen? I don't see that anybody would like that, so I think we'll jump right into any questions. I'm gonna go last. Mike, do you have anything you want to say?
No.
Chuck?
I do, but what I would like to do is discuss the letter of the law again, if that's all right. I don't have any about their, I don't have any questions about their plan. I think it's okay.
Okay, I think we covered everything else pretty much in detail at the last hearing. But if you'd like to speak, go ahead.
Okay. Going north from this property, there's approximately 1,400 feet of revetment before you get to the next batch of open bank that faces the bay. And going south from here, of the 900 feet or so, when you get to wide open sand, there's one space of approximately 160 feet long where there's another home that's in a similar gap situation like this. And other than that, that entire bank is revetted as well. So I think that it is not unreasonable to suggest that approximately 2,000 feet of the bank along there does not contribute any meaningful amount of sediment or sand to the beaches. And that this one particular property definitely does not contribute what would be considered a significant amount of material, sediment supplied to coastal beaches, dunes, barriers, etc. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because this law is broken up into two pieces. The first piece is when a coastal bank is determined to be significant to storm damage prevention or flood control because it supplies sediment to coastal beaches, coastal dunes, or barrier beaches, 310 CMR 1033 through 5 shall apply. Okay.
Jesus Christ.
Then down below that, it says, when a coastal bank is determined to be significant to storm damage prevention or flood control because it is a vertical buffer to storm waters, then 310 CMR 1036 through 8 shall apply. And where I'm going with this is I don't think that anybody could reasonably argue that what small amount of sediment washes out here contributes in any meaningful or significant way. And as a result, this project should be subject to the second clause and not the first clause. And the second clause says, bulkheads, revetments, seawalls, groins, or other coastal air engineering structures may be permitted on such a coastal bank, except when such bank is significant to storm damage prevention or flood control because it supplies sediment to coastal beaches, dunes, or barrier beaches. So I continue to maintain that there is no lawful preclusion for this project. That's what I had to say.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. Greg?
I just had a quick question. I was wondering if you could discuss the reason why this new design is an improvement over the original design.
It's
in terms of the revetment.
It's an improvement in that under the regulation, DEP likes not to see a resource area taken up that otherwise would not need to be taken up, meaning the coastal beach. So bringing the tow more landward provides for more coastal beach than the first design. So we were willing to move it back because we can maintain the height. Our toe stones might be a little deeper and we can maintain the same gradient. So there really isn't any adverse effect to the design, but it does implement what DMF was concerned about, and that is providing more coastal beach by moving it more landward.
Thank you.
Okay, Janet, any questions, concerns, comments?
I like the idea of moving the revetment back in response to the letter from DMF. If we were working in an area where the building had been constructed before 1978, I don't think there would be much question. I think our question comes back to the post 1978 construction. And I feel conflicted about it. I have issues about it. I understand, I think that the property was purchased well before 1978, but for many reasons, a house or structure could not be built, and it wasn't built until the 80s. Nevertheless, we still have that issue. And as we have seen, especially this summer when the beach at Campground had to be closed for 2 weeks at one time, and I think maybe another week another time, it certainly looks as if the revetments have contributed to lowering and damaging the beach. With the response that many people who would come to that beach were not able to do so for several weeks this summer because of the exposed, we think because of the exposed peat and the toxins that were in the water. It doesn't seem fair in a way to punish a lot of people for someone else, and yet as I said, I do have some concern also for the fact that the property was purchased before 1978, but that a house could not be put up until after 1978. So that's what I have to say right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. And I want to thank the applicants for addressing the DMF concerns, and tonight for just going over the protocol for the sandbag removal. I find that my objections that I stated at previous hearings, still maintain them, that this is going on a post 1978 house. I think the regulations are pretty clear on that. The property has 235 Shirtlift has a order of conditions from 1986 that says no revetment can ever be on this property. That was not appealed at the time, and it's still in force as we discuss this project. I have concerns about impact to the surrounding areas that I've discussed before, some of which Janet has mentioned. And also, as I stated before, some concerns about the ability of the Vogt family to maintain the revetment, as they've shown that they haven't put in due diligence to the erosion control measures that they were permitted for. And that's where I am. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add to
I
this?
do. if you don't mind, just quickly.
Well, Greg had his
Uh,
hand up and then we'll go to you
I'll wait.
and then to Mike.
Fine.
Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just under the understanding that the purpose of this, as I read the notice, is that we're here to protect the post 78 houses on either side of the Vokes property.
370.
And I'm sorry, pre-78, excuse me. Yes, the pre-78 houses on both sides of the property. So I guess the question I have is I don't know what other options are available to protect, for example, Mr. DeVito's home or Miss Gumbel's home with respect to the erosion that's occurring on both sides of their revetment. And it seems that this option of gap filling seems something that is reasonable with regards to protecting both of those pre-78 properties. And so anyways, that's my thought. I thought this was more of a protecting those two properties and using the Vokes property to do that. That's it.
Thank you, Greg. Mike?
Oh, I just want to, once again, just point out that Section 5, 10.30, Section 5 addresses this issue in black and white. It says the order of conditions and the certificate of compliance for any new building with 100 feet landward of the top of a coastal bank permitted by the issuing authority, that was back in 86, shall contain the specific conditions promulgated. I don't want to read all that stuff, but back in 86, they got an order of conditions and a certificate of compliance, which said requires that no coastal engineering structure, such as a bulkhead, revetment, or seawall, shall be permitted on an eroding bank in any time in the future to protect the project allowed by this order of conditions. That is specific to the property, and it negates the whole argument under Section 3, which says that there is no property line. It's in black and white, and if we were to follow the Wetlands Protection Act, you cannot deviate from what the actual act states, and it is specific to this, and it's been this way since 1978. That's all I got to say, as said before.
And okay, Chuck, you had something you wanted to add, and I just want to mention that
Sure.
after the commission finishes its questions, I will then open it, and we have response from the applicant's representatives. I will open it up for some comments from butters and the public, but that is not at this time. Go ahead, Chuck.
Okay, so first, what Mike was just saying is actually wrong. The only thing that item 5 requires is that a block of text be added to an order of conditions, and that's all it does. What the text says doesn't matter. That says that this block of text has to be added to an order of conditions, which it was. And it does describe the project allowed by that order of conditions. But in this case, as Greg pointed out, we're talking about protecting pre-78 properties on either side of it. So in both cases, item 5 doesn't apply at all. The other point that I had is that the harping on pre-1978 only counts if somebody can convince me that the bank that we're talking about revetting is determined to be significant to storm damage prevention or flood control because it supplies sediment to coastal beaches, dunes, or barrier beaches. I defy anybody to provide information that will say that the amount of material that comes from that one piece of land is significant to flood control, in which case it defaults to the item after item 5, which covers 6 through 8, which says that if it's significant to storm damage prevention or flood control because it's a vertical buffer to storm waters, then 6 through 8 apply, and 6 through 8 allow the construction of revetments. That's what I have to say.
Greg, did you still have your hand up? Okay, so Dawn, you had something?
Yeah, through the chair. in this situation, because of the way the regulation's written, everybody is right in a small way. Although it is an overriding fact that DEP has allowed gaps to be filled to protect flanking pre-78 homes. And that's what we have here. And I understand Mike's point about the post-78 nature of the house in the middle, but because there isn't any other engineering option at this stage to protect the DeVito home, and we've demonstrated that, we can't move the house back, we can't put any returns in because we would still be on the Volk's property, and the same goes for the Gumbel property. So it's unfortunate that we're landing on something that is going to not allow the very regulation that allows to protect the pre-78 status. And Chuck makes a very interesting point about the significant supply of sand from a coastal bank. You've already, as a town, kind of not the town per se, but because of the number of feet of revetment to the north and the south, you've already starved off the beach. So this 152-foot gap that we're talking about cannot possibly be significant to the whatever the dimension was, that the 900 feet, or actually 2,000 feet total north and south beaches, that the volume of sand isn't significant enough to do that. So it seems to me that the issue is being clouded. We need to protect the pre-78 homes because they have the right to. We need to also enforce the amount of sand that's supposed to be placed on each revetment to replace the loss of sand. It isn't the responsibility of one property to provide all that sand. Case in point, Lieutenant's Island. There was a big to-do about one piece of property being affected by many properties that weren't performing their nourishment. That's a job of the commission and the agent to try to police that, to make sure people are putting their sand down. That would be what we would do with this property. The DeVitos and the Gumbels, because they would be controlling the revetment, would be responsible for additional sand beyond what they already provide, so that the coastal beach in front of their property would stay at a relatively high level to protect the toe stones, as well as be responsible for their portion of the beach. Then each subsequent property owner, north and south, should be subjected to the same responsibility, and therefore the beaches would stay at a higher elevation than they are right now. So I wish the commissioners would be a little bit more conscious of the fact that, yes, there are clouding circumstances, but those are not the overriding circumstances with the engineering that's needed to protect the pre-78 status of the homes on either flank. And that's very important to pay attention to. It's easy to gravitate to the center house and say, I can't do this because the regulation says I can't. But then your own review by BSC Group made a statement. It was quoted by Greg DeCesar that this is allowable if, in fact, it's designed to protect the pre-70 homes on either side. So I wish you would just consider this more in depth in light of the two homes that could be lost as a result of a vote misappropriated to the one post-78 house. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I just want to point out that as everybody keeps looking at precedents here, and as far as I can tell, Eastham has never permitted a revetment in front of a post-1978 house. And just adding that to the list of precedents that we're considering here. Don, I do hear what you're saying, and I find all of these revetments complicated and troubling, and so many different issues engaged here, but I am finding myself kind of settled where I've settled. And I guess if there's no other comments from the commissioners or from staff, I'll open it up to others for comment. Gary, let's start with you. Please unmute. Gary, you need to unmute. We can't hear you.
Okay, so I have a real problem with the position the commission's
If
taking.
you could please identify yourself
Oh,
for the record.
Gary Sable, 105 Shirtlift Road. I'll repeat myself from the previous hearings. I am the first Rockford veteran on the stretch between Shirtlift between Thumpertown and Campground. I find all of the discussions very interesting, but I also find them not very persuasive. I think Mr. Harnett's position that the law is the law, and you know what, there are a lot of laws, and his position that if it was going to be changed, the DEP would have changed it, which was the position he has taken in a previous hearing. You know, there are a lot of laws out there that have never been changed, even though the world has moved forward. So I find that to be a hollow argument. In addition to that, Ms. Strauss, the fact that you have argued that not enough has been done, I can assure you, I'm one of those that has done everything possible to control the erosion. 2 rounds of bags, and after each storm, I'd go down there with a patch of cement and patch all the holes. And then we've had 3 fences, one of which was gone within 24 hours of installation. There is no solution but rocks. So while you may have an opinion that they didn't do enough, the Volks didn't do enough, I have firsthand opinion that it didn't matter what they did, it wasn't going to work. And by the way, while you have the power, I have the knowledge that trumps your knowledge. So I'm telling you that you guys are going down a path that may be logical from your perspective, but I will tell you that I do not think it is morally proper to take the positions you're taking under the circumstance. In addition to that, I believe that the Mass DEP empowered the conservation commissions to make the decisions that were appropriate under the circumstances. And this is one of those circumstances that you should ignore the 1978 rule and just get this done and stop putting these people through so much pain and so much money. It looks ridiculous from the outside looking in. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. And Nancy, if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Great. Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I am, my name is Nancy Voke. I am part of one of the applicants at 235 Shirtlift, and I've participated in every single one of these calls and have provided information with every question that's been asked. We've worked with Coastal Engineering, with Don Monroe. We've worked with our neighbors and have tried to provide as much support as possible to answer each of your questions. And I do have a couple of points, and I know Amy Blakesley, I think Amy, you're still on. I really want to just clarify one point that I think I want to ensure that for the record, there is no misrepresentation of what has been done to support either 265 Shirtlift, Richard DeVito's, or 235 Shirtlift with nourishment. We've had it on the record already. We had it in the initial call. We offered to provide photos, show that the plantings had gone all the way across the hill. You've seen it in previous photos from Greg Berman's visits in 2019, his visits in 2022. We have religiously done the sand nourishment. And I know in the first call that we had on, I think it was September 13th, 2022, the question was, well, why didn't you do more and apply for more? Why didn't the DeVitos apply for more? Every single year, exactly what Gary Sable just said, we have deposited the sand. Richard DeVito, who's on the phone with Eileen right now as well, they have deposited the sand, the nourishment. And when it's been washed away, they've deposited more sand. We've deposited more than was required many years. So the idea of saying nothing was done, it wasn't taken care of, that is simply not true. Okay, I've also told you in previous meetings, the same as Gary Sable's gone down and repaired the sandbags. I have done the exact same thing, gone up to Goose Hummock, got the composite materials, have plugged the holes. We have worked on this and the grass has grown. It's been covered. But when you have a revetment, 2 rock revetments, it has been undermined. And what was previously termed soft solution has been eroded. So I want to keep that clear for the record. You can go back through your other calls. This isn't new information. This is information you've had, and it's in your database. It's in both Amy's old database that she converted in 2019 to the new database. She has everything on the record with sand being deposited. We came to you in 2020 after Governor Baker declared state of emergency. And we asked you, could we come and please deposit more sand? We did another, and Karen, you were there, you know that. Chuck Wagner was there. At that meeting, I think it was May 5th or 12th, it was recommended to us, why don't you look at trying to fill the gap with a stone revetment? So we've been in the process. Unfortunately, the waves have done much more damage in the meantime. So just that for the record, we do want to make sure that's captured. The other thing is that, as Don Monroe from Coastal mentioned, in January, you asked us to hire a third party. And we worked with Keith Johnson. Don worked with Keith Johnson to hire a third party reviewer. If you didn't think it was a thing that would have been possible to do, why were we hiring anyone? We put out around $5,000 so that we could get a third party review, so that you could have an expert advise you on the 2 points. Were the wave action calculations correct? Was the height of the revetment correct for the calculations that Coastal had done? And 2, what were the DEP regulations? And was it recommended that you could put a gap in there? And you can clearly read the report that you received that said, yes, it is possible. Yes, the DEP has permitted them, and it is up to you to decide. So those are the questions for you. And I know my mother's on here. I know Dick DeVito's on here. It's late for them. You've got 92-year-old people. You've got 83-year-old people. You've got 72-year-old people that are the homeowners here. They haven't just come to the Cape. My mother's been here since 1947, before any of you were even born. This isn't a new thing. She grew up on the beaches there. None of this erosion was occurring at this state. It's since all of the revetments have been put in, and we can't help the fact that every 2,000 feet in one direction and 900 feet in the other direction have rock revetments, and that there are 2 lots that are still, the paths for erosion and sediment. So, I mean, our ask again on behalf of Marcy Gumbel, who's sitting here, Richard and Eileen DeVito, and the Vogt family, is for you to look at a practical solution and understand that we have done things, and you can be 100% committed. My mother lives in this house. A rock revetment would go in, and it will be taken care of, and it will be continued to deposit, but it has to be a solution that's viable. As Don said, something, and Chuck said, something that is appropriate for a high velocity zone. So thank you very much for your consideration again, and we completely appreciate all of your time that you're putting into this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Okay,
Yeah.
see. Any other comments that we haven't heard already? Any issues that we have not yet heard? Okay, hearing none, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the project.
Are you gonna discuss any conditions for that motion, or are you just?
Okay, how did we do this the last time?
Last
I
time
think,
you had me do it. Would you like
yeah,
me to?
well, we had the standard conditions for replenishment and time of year for doing the work for replenishment. We had a set of standard conditions for revetments, as I recall. I don't know that there are other. Okay, maybe you should chip in. Go for it.
Okay, Hillary, you have a comment before I jump in?
Yeah, I was
Hillary?
just gonna say that we did include in the staff report the special conditions for revetments with nourishment. So the general ones would be informing the contractor and engineer, the contractor's agreement to follow the order, the liability, approve plans and supporting documents, the beach access condition, the no chink stone condition, the site delineation, pre-construction meeting, work start notice, limit of work, mechanized equipment, material storage, staging and parking, construction debris, vegetation management and restoration, and as-built plan, annual beach nourishment in perpetuity, the sand condition on grain size and composition, a prohibition on fertilizers and pesticides and rodenticides and fungicides, and then a request for the certificate of compliance.
Right, and add into that the details given about how the existing sandbags and materials would be removed.
Yeah, deconstruction protocol.
Deconstruction protocol.
You had the staging in there too, right?
Yeah, the staging permits in there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you'd like
Okay,
to make a
so
motion on what Hillary just said.
I'll move that we approve with all of the conditions that Hillary just listed for us. Thank you.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Chuck motion, Greg seconded. I would like to, just before we vote, say that if anybody is voting to deny and hasn't already stated reasons why during this hearing, if they would repeat them as we vote. Chuck.
Okay, if they're gonna repeat, then I'm gonna repeat.
Well,
Wait a minute, the pre-1978 exclusion only applies to banks that are contributing significant sediment. If it's not contributing significant sediment, that pre-78 exclusion does not apply at all. So my vote is yes.
okay, Greg,
My vote is yes.
okay, Mike,
My vote is no. As all the reasons previously discussed.
okay, Janet,
I'm very torn, may I say it, because one property has not, although it was just stated that it has been maintained. I don't like the idea of two other homeowners losing their property. And I can't see a way around it. And I don't think it's fair because they did follow the rules. So I'm going to vote yes.
And I am a no for the reasons previously stated. The vote is 3 yes, 2 no's. Project is approved. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, all you folks, for the hard work you've put forward.
Thank you, commissioners.
you.
We know this is a difficult decision and we completely appreciate your time.
I want to say to all of you,
I'm
Thank-
sorry, could you identify yourself, please?
I'm sorry, I'm Brian Volk. I want to thank all of you for being such hard workers for the town. It's been an eye-opening experience seeing how much you care about the town, how hard you work, and how hard you prepare. And that is a great credit and a tribute to all of you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. I would like to suggest, if nobody objects, that we just take a brief 2-minute recess and then come back and go through the rest of the agenda. Would everybody be okay with that? Okay.
Yes.
I have 2:45 on my clock. So.
Just get off.
Okay, Wayne, it looks like our 2 minutes are up. Okay, welcome back from our short recess. Next up on the agenda is continuation of 345 Harms Way. Tim Klink has requested that this be continued until November 14th. So we don't really have anything to discuss there. Liaison reports. Janet, do you have anything from the CPC committee? Janet, are you back? Looks like still waiting. We'll wait a second. Janet, are you there? Okay. We'll wait a second more. I think she'll let us know when she's back. We could move on to the, Mike, you have anything from the Forest Committee?
We're planting on November 11th. We're planning on November 11th, the Beach Plum and Bayberry. And that's it.
Okay. Do you have enough people to plant, or do you need more volunteers?
We can always use more volunteers. Currently have, we had, last year we planted inkberry and we put fencing around it, protected and let people, it's more observable. We're gonna take that up. So we have two projects. One is to remove the fencing around the inkberry and then plant. So we do have a lot of people, but we can always use more. It goes quicker. It's
Okay.
21 plants, so. And yes, so we would like more.
Okay, this always seems like a good opportunity to put that out into the world.
Yeah.
Okay, looks like Janet's still not back. The Open Space Committee is going to try to submit an application on November 1st to the CPA committee to extend the trail at the ADA trail at Sandy Meadow. There's still a bit of work to be done on getting costs and stuff, but I'm in the process of writing enough to at least get us in by the deadline. And the CPC has said we could give additional information after that through November. Sandy Meadow interpretive signs, where Friday we'll have a drone out there taking photos for the signage and for other use. And we hope to have those signs out to the printer shortly after that. One of the other things we discussed was the need to fund projects such as small restoration projects on conservation land. And we propose asking the town at town meeting to add $50,000 to the conservation fund. And bring that to you because it's the Conservation Commission controls the fund. And I guess that's also later on the agenda, so I'll hold off on that and take it when it comes on the agenda. It's kind of where we are. The next meeting is third week of November. If anybody wants to sit in, you're definitely welcome. And that's kind of where I am. Janet's still not back. Hillary?
Do we want to make mention of the strategic plan committee that's been meeting, and we've been working on updates to the strategic plan? A number of questions on that document that we're updating had to do with conservation land and funding and management plans for land. So we're gonna update those and continue many of them into the strategic plan going forward.
Okay. Okay, well, you said that the strategic plan committee is meeting on November 9th. Mike and I are both members of that committee. We're going to be reviewing what was done over the for the original plan, which ends on I guess June 1st, 2024, and the new plan would start after that. So we've asked all of the departments and staff representatives to committees to kind of pull together what has happened with the plan to date and propose anything they'd like to see going forward. And the committee will be reviewing whatever planning documents the town has related to the existing subjects under the plan, plus see if we want to add any additional areas. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. Janet, did you have anything to add about the C committee liaison report? No? Okay. Well, I'll just say that the deadline for applications is November 1st at 4 p.m. at the town hall. And I gather that you have a meeting right after that at 5.
Yes, and you probably told them that you don't have to have a complete expense tally. They will accept the the submission without the expenses being final.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So education and training updates, the MACC fall conference is this weekend. If anybody's still interested, there's still time to sign up. That's way out in Devon, but there are 4 sessions that they'll be doing also virtually. Okay. I don't remember. Did we have minutes? I don't think we had any minutes. Okay. Right. Conservation restrictions. So you've all gotten a copy of the conservation restrictions on a number of properties going back to 1999. And they've been through the Open Space Committee, Mark Robinson, Town Council, the state, back to the Town Council, back to the state, back to us, and they should be they're complete now, and all they need are notarized signatures from us. I think we had it before us in 2021 to review, and since then the work's been completed. Does anybody have any comments on what they've read? Alex, you had something?
I just wanted to mention that we need notarized signatures from every commissioner. So you have to come to town hall and get that notarized.
And
Okay.
and would that be the town clerk, Linda Sassy, who would be doing the notarizing? Okay.
Correct.
And once we've completed our signatures, it then goes to the select board for their signatures, and then goes to the Eastham Conservation Foundation for their signatures, and then goes back to the state Office of Energy and Environment for the final signature. So yeah, it's taken a long time, but it's nice to see that the land will be permanently protected. And that was actually a condition of the purchase. Janet?
Yes, I recently had to go in to have something notarized. And I was asked, or it was suggested, that I call ahead and make sure that the person or associate who would be notarizing it would be in when I went in. So it's just a suggestion for people who might drive down to town hall to check first.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, that you might want to just make an appointment with Linda. At a time that would work for all of you, so. Okay, okay, committee reorganization. So once a year, we're required, as all committees are, to have a vote on committee officers. That would be chair, vice chair, and clerk. And as you know, the clerk here is more a requirement and a ceremonial title than somebody who has actually has responsibilities. So we're going to do chair first. I'm going to nominate myself again for chair. Is anybody else interested in running? If I could have a second on my nomination.
Second,
I'll second.
Okay, I'll do a roll call. Janet,
yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes,
Greg,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, vice chair. Janet has done a extraordinary job being vice chair. Is that something you'd like to continue, or is somebody else who might be interested?
I have no problems with continuing, but if someone else would like to do it, I don't have problems with that either.
Right, it looks like nobody else would like to do that, so I'll nominate Janet for another term as vice chair.
second,
Okay, Greg,
Yes.
Chuck,
yes,
Mike,
Yes.
Janet?
Do I vote for myself?
Yes, you do,
Oh,
unless you want to vote for somebody else, and you can do that too.
yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes. And then clerk, Now, we sort of forced Chuck into taking that last time. And you've had such a lot of responsibility there. Would you like to keep it or?
It's probably the only thing I can actually commit to right now, so I'm fine with it. I actually do read all of the minutes as they come through, so.
Well, good. We would hope everybody would, but yeah. So
I'm
I well, technically, if we didn't have staff, you're supposed to do a whole lot of things. So, including post the agenda and other such things. But thankfully, we have Alex and Amy, and we're well taken care of by that. So I will nominate Chuck as clerk.
Second.
Do I have it? Okay, Mike,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, good. And we're done with that. And thank you, everybody. Conservation fund. So I started to talk about that earlier during the liaison reports. You know, we have a conservation fund that kind of was hidden for a while, and we rediscovered it. And this is money that can be spent on open space. The commission has the authority to approve any purchases from the fund without any additional other input. There are a lot of projects at our conservation areas, small projects, small restoration projects, sign needs, and other things for which we don't really have funding. And the Open Space Committee would like to propose that we ask the town to add $50,000 to the conservation fund for that purpose. And as we are responsible for the fund, it's our decision to decide whether to ask for this amount or ask for another amount, or if there's any other projects that the Conservation Commission would like to see covered through this fund. If you think there should be additional funding asked for at this time.
If you don't ask, they can't say no. So we should always ask.
Okay. Janet?
I'm a little confused. I know at various times we've talked about funds that we should have access to. And
Okay, would you like me to run through our various funds?
Yes.
not necessarily, and not unless other people would like to. But have we ever found out exactly how much we have in different accounts?
More or less. So the conservation fund has about $7,800 in it. The conservation fund can only be spent on a variety of open space related activities, water quality, GIS data. It can be used for land purchases, but obviously we're not asking for enough money it's time to do that. I'd be happy to email you guys again a list of what it covers. This is something that is under the 1957 Conservation Commission Act, which established the conservation commissions in Massachusetts. And Eastham established its conservation commission in 1958. I'm not sure when the conservation fund was established exactly, but people kind of lost sight of it for a while, and it kind of hung out. We also have the Wetland Protection Fund, which is where the town share of the WPA filing fees goes. And last I checked, which I guess was a while ago, we had about $120,000 in there. I have been trying to get in full accounting of everything we have. There are bylaw fees coming in, but we don't yet have access to those. I've been trying to work on that. We have the consultation fee fund, which is where people, when we ask for an outside consultant, they pay in their money that's put aside in that fund and used only to pay the consultant, and any extra money is returned to them. And There is also a land maintenance and acquisition fund that was set up a number of years ago. That's under the control of the select board, and if we wanted to use that for anything, we'd have to ask them. The money really at this point is earmarked along with the $50,000 that was voted at town meeting 2 years ago. It had been earmarked for the open space and rec plan and land maintenance plan development. Alex, you had something to add there?
More of a question than something to add. What do we use the Wetlands Protection Act fund for?
Okay,
What
we
can
can't use it for open space. We can only use it for things related to the administration of the WPA. So that would be staffing if we wanted to, education, hiring consultants, legal consultations, and other such things. So if we wanted to go to a conference, that's where this would be paid for. If we wanted to invite speakers, that's where this would be paid for. And anything related to that. We're not allowed to buy equipment with it and or office supplies, but we are allowed to fund staff as long as their work is administrative related to the administration of the act. And yeah, Alex, you had anything else?
I wanted to mention that Amy, Hillary, and I looked at our fees chart earlier today, and for the notice of intent, we've got those different categories that various fees are attached to. So we're going to be looking at that when those notice of intents are being filed with a little bit more scrutiny than we have before.
Including the local filing fees, because we do see sometimes the checks and fee calculations in the NOI paperwork we get, but we don't always, and we never see any indication in the paperwork that they paid the local fees. And the local fees at the moment are just getting paid into the town because they're a fee. They have to be used for things related to the wetlands bylaw only, and not other uses. And Jackie had agreed that we should be able to have access to some of those funds. But that kind of got paused in executing that. So I don't know if we'll be able to kind of work that out before the next town meeting, because it would require a vote. Mike?
I was just wondering, when we have a hearing and the applicant brings a lawyer, could we use some of this money to pay for the town lawyer overtime or whatever, so they could sit in, so we don't get sandbagged so much? I mean, as it is, we're
The town,
amateurs.
yeah, but the town is paying for our legal fees at the moment. So we don't want to stop them from doing that.
But could we get them to attend the hearings? In other words, we're having one coming up who's bringing with a lawyer. It's going to be contentious. We're not saying regulate the case, but just to keep it on track.
Are you talking about the violation, or are you talking
Yes,
about?
that's a
Okay,
violation.
I've already asked if we could have a consult with the town council on that and other enforcement issues. So I expect that might not happen before the next meeting, but for that meeting, it would be a discussion of maybe any evidence you would have to show what the piles were, and then we would perhaps ask him to go and return with some suggestions on how it might be addressed.
Okay.
Okay, Alex?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of second what you said, Karen. We'd like to get an answer for what material these piles are made out of, and then, if we need to consult town council after that, we will.
Yeah, because we don't want to get into a discussion on that really, because it's not
Right.
on the agenda and so on. But I will mention that I did speak to the MACC to ask when the next fundamental session on enforcement is. The last one was recently opposite our regular meeting. And they're going to do one around the time of the annual conference in March. And I put in a request that it not be on a Tuesday so that any of us who wish to attend. I attended in 2020, but I think I'd like a refresher as well. Okay, so back to the conservation fund. Are any more questions on that? Okay, so 50,000 seems a reasonable amount to start with.
Yeah.
Alex, you still have your hand up? Any?
Do we need to like itemize that 50,000? Like, do we need to get quotes for
No.
whatever projects we're thinking of?
Well, all of the projects would be under the, I would think, under the procurement requirement. So if it's under 10,000, you don't have to get quotes. If it's above that, then we'd have to follow the regular procurement procedures. But we're asking money for these general items that would be covered under the conservation fund, and then to use them as we need to over time. We're not laying out specifically, we want to spend this much money to close up that opening to Great Pond here and this much on that one, or the signs will cost $5,000 or whatever. We don't know yet, but this is money that we could have on hand to cover those things as they come in. And then so small restoration projects can be handled sooner rather than later before they get to become big problems. And then I know Mike and I are interested in possibly getting somebody to look into some GIS work for us on rivers and other things. And that was discussed at the open space meeting, as well as Hillary and Alex are going to look into the possibility of getting a AmeriCorps intern. And that could be a project that could fall under that. But if we wanted to do something bigger, I think we'd have to probably go out and put together a proper plan and get quotes on that. But anyway, I think in order to maintain these open spaces, you have to have a little money available to do things. And not all of these are covered under the Community Preservation Act. In any case, that takes an average of 18 months to get approved and money done and so on and so forth. So Mike, you had anything else? Your hand's still up. Mike? Okay. Anybody else? So I think we should probably have a motion and oh. Okay, Wayne sent me a text that the Zoom has crashed and unable to get the internet at the moment. So
I'm still seeing you, so maybe
Yeah.
that's correct.
maybe his crashed. Okay, but it looks like Mike, your hand's still up. Do you have anything you want to add? Or maybe they're just not hearing us. Zoom doesn't use the town server. So maybe the town crashed and we're all still sitting here.
I can hear you, and I'm in Dallas, Texas, so
Well,
I don't think the Zoom has crashed.
well, the Zoom at town hall,
Well, I'm also at town hall and I seem to be.
Okay.
on the phone. So I'm not sure
Mike doesn't seem to be hearing me. Or if he is, I can't hear
You're
him.
muted, Mike.
I have a quick question. I came very late. I'm coming in from Dallas, Texas, to witness I'm coming for my sister, Kate Levy, who has requested a bench for my mom at Wiley Park. And I know I must have missed that little segment. is there anything that I can add to whatever happened there? I know
Okay, let me give you a quick update there.
I'm well
that,
out of order.
Yeah, that's okay. We're kind of, Wayne says we're back up, but let me, this was early on the agenda and.
Okay,
So, and I'm going to apologize before I start here because there's been some confusion and it really shouldn't have been on the agenda tonight. So what's going on is that the Conservation Commission had put in a moratorium on memorial benches. So we need to discuss, the commission needs to discuss that before we can get to discuss the memorial bench that your family would like to have. And in addition to that, the usual protocols are that the town selects a few benches that might be appropriate. And then we ask the person who'd like a memorial bench to pay for the bench and a small plaque. And then the town would install and provide maintenance ongoing.
yeah, we're aware of all that. My sister has been working on this for quite some time with various representatives of the town and in Eastham. And we're also aware that there are way too many benches on the beaches and covered with sand and stuff. So we in particular selected a place that my mom really loved, Wiley Park, and seemed to be underserved with benches. And my sister, in pursuing this, seemed to have a positive reaction from the people that she was talking to about doing it, and was under the impression that it had to pass muster at this particular meeting. And she couldn't be here tonight, and she asked me to join, but I'm in Dallas, Texas, installing a museum exhibit, and I came quite late, and I apologize for my intrusion at the end of your meeting. So
that's fine. We're always happy to talk with people. And I do apologize because
so this wasn't the right forum for this.
It is and it isn't. And I know that's confusing, but it was presented to me originally as this was a bench to go on a public beach.
Oh, no,
and
no.
then once it was on the agenda, I found out that it was actually in the conservation area. So if it was a public beach, we would review it and we would say most likely that it has minimal impact, and then it would go to the select board for approval. But because
we're
it's in
quite
a,
aware of that.
okay, because and they also have a moratorium in place.
Yes,
so just so
We
you know, because it came to us, and we have a moratorium in place, and the Open Space Committee has been discussing this as well. What we decided tonight was to put it on the agenda of our next work session and see if we can't clear up any issues around this, and see if we can move it forward or what.
Okay,
what
I
we're gonna do here.
understand.
And I do apologize for the confusion here.
That's good. That's quite all right. We're just trying to pursue it any way we can, and we know that we don't want to pollute beaches with overwhelming numbers of memorial benches or anything. We actually selected this because my mom just loved this place, and we know by trotting it constantly ourselves that it was fairly underserved with seating. You know, it's filled with dog walkers and things like that, and it overlooks a pond out in the middle of nowhere, basically. So we're hoping that on your next evaluation, you can see to it to perhaps move a few of these, things forward. But and I guess you'll let us know if what we need to do to keep pursuing this.
Right. It's something that's been being discussed at the Open Space Committee as well. So it's not just hanging out there in limbo. It's something that we are. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for hearing me out, and I'm sorry to intrude so late in your.
No. Janet, you wanted to say something before David leaves?
Yes, Mr. Levy, so you don't feel badly. In addition, Karen had asked earlier if she should delay the vote on that until someone might appear later in the meeting.
Oh,
so
quite
we
nice.
never know when someone will appear. Don't worry, it's good to hear from you. And I like the idea of a bench. So,
Yeah. You know, it's
So,
it's a nice remote area. There's really very little around it, but it's on a beautiful and beloved public path right across from the ponds there.
Mhm.
And we thought it was the perfect place for that. So
Yeah.
we will
So-
continue to pursue whatever we need to do. And we're of course glad to pay for it and pay for its, maintenance and upkeep and all that. So,
Yeah, the town chips in that portion of it,
right.
and
Okay.
happily so.
Right.
So,
Very good.
but we'll get back to you as we discuss this further. Thank
Okay.
you for coming to talk to us. We
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much. Thank you very much for hearing me out.
Okay, so we were discussing $50,000 for the conservation fund, and I guess I was asking for a motion that we would pursue this.
move to pursue the $50,000 for the conservation fund.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, Chuck,
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Whoa.
Three votes.
Yeah, and next time warn me, I'll take my earbuds out. Greg,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes,
and I'm a yes, okay. And I'll catch up with Alex and Hillary later to talk about how we might do this. Let's see, there was next up, so you did get a draft proposal. It's a rough draft, and I kind of wasn't expecting it to be on the agenda tonight because I just had asked Alex and Hillary for input, but it's a proposal to add areas protected by MISA and NHESP to conservation jurisdiction. I have discussed this before. It came up when we had the joint board meeting, and so far in town, nobody actually is looking at these areas to see that proper procedures are followed outside of priority habitat areas under our current jurisdiction. And it seemed to me that given that we have that experience already, and somebody should be at least checking in on this, and the planning board apparently never even heard of natural heritage, and it's not on the building department's checklist either, that I thought maybe we could borrow from Provincetown and add it to our jurisdiction. And that document kind of lays out what they've done and reasoning that why we might do it. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. Now, just to mention that we don't have a huge number of areas of priority habitat outside of our current jurisdiction, so I don't think it would add a significant amount of extra work. But it just would provide some oversight because we've already seen one priority habitat for box turtles totally cleared without a MISA review being filed. And I think it's important that we, at the very least, just have some oversight of this locally. Janet?
two things. Didn't we recently vote as some recommendations that was submitted, I think, to the building department, that no property could be clear cut? I'd have to try to find those regulations, but
Yeah, there was a zoning change regarding clear cutting and I guess legacy trees, but this is not that.
and to say heritage trees, etc.
Right,
so-
but this isn't not that.
I understand.
Okay.
Now, my thought on what you're asking is I did read it and I thought it looked good. I did not think of anything that should be added, but I don't know a whole lot about it either. But I think since the Pilgrims landed, or since the Pilgrims went into Provincetown Harbor and then had their first encounter in Eastham, that we should rectify some damage and follow Provincetown's lead and adopt these measures. Thank you.
this would be a small bylaw change, so it would have to go
Yeah.
before town meeting. And we'd have to have a public hearing about it prior. And any other comments, Chuck?
I really, again, think that if we're gonna do this, we should have a map to show people that shows where these things are and not
Mhm.
just wing it.
Good idea.
I
Well,
agree that
it-
this stuff needs to be, but following what Janet said, the Pilgrims also clear cut this place from one beach to the other. And
That's
yet
true.
the box turtles are still here. So I'm resistant to the suggestions that we can do any meaningful amount of damage by somebody clearing a few things in their lot.
Mhm.
But still, I
So-
think a map of these properties is an appropriate addendum to an action like this.
And these areas are on the town GIS map already. So if somebody's reviewing their project, this would be, and abutters and all these other things, that would be on the town GIS map, but we certainly could produce some PDFs of the areas that show where the priority habitats are. In fact, I meant to include that before it got shared out with everybody. I meant to include the local Eastham
The reason
map.
this will have to go through town meeting, right?
Yes, because it's a bylaw change.
And so for a lot of people, the first time they're even gonna notice it is when it's in the warrant, right? So if we have something available that they can go and look at, then that would be helpful. I think.
Right, we will have to have a public hearing before it gets to that point. But, and yeah, I know how you feel about how that gets publicized. But I do my best, and I'm gonna ask you to help next time because you didn't think what I did was quite adequate enough. And but yeah, I think we can put together a packet about this that includes the screenshots that show where the priority habitat is and explain why this is important. And so it seems like everybody's in favor of pursuing this. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will, I think, format the bylaw change and we'll figure out when we need to do the hearing and so on and so forth. And get back to you all.
Okay.
Or do we want to have a vote now? I think everybody just agreeing is probably sufficient at this point. And then we'll, when it's properly formatted into our bylaw, we'll have a proper vote, I think, and then have a public hearing. Okay. And let's see, I think that's the agenda, but I wanted to ask you all to think about when you might be available for an in-person work session. We haven't had one in a while, and it would be, I think, really good to have one sometime fairly soon. So just think about that, and if you have some dates, maybe you could email me and Alex and then, Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, we can send out a poll if we have like a rough idea as far as a timeline and find a date that works for everyone.
Does everybody think that's okay?
Yeah.
Or are we thinking sometime in the next few weeks, next month?
Yeah, I think if there's room, the next few weeks or either right before Thanksgiving or right after.
Okay.
Just because I think maybe there's some things we might want to push along a little bit in case we want to take some action before town meeting, before the warrant.
Yeah. How about we shoot for, the first week or two after Thanksgiving?
Well, how about let's see, first week after Thanksgiving, because otherwise we're kind of pushing it into the time of year where everybody seems to not answer emails and disappears. Well,
Don't we have a meeting the Tuesday after Thanksgiving?
yeah,
The
we have a
Tuesday
meeting.
before. Or I guess the Tuesday of Thanksgiving.
We have a meeting the 28th because our next meeting is November 14th and then 2 weeks after is the 28th. So that's after Thanksgiving.
Oh wait, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong month. Yes, the Tuesday after the 28th.
Mhm. Yeah, so maybe we could find the week of the 4th. I'm gonna suggest December 5th, Tuesday. But that
Works
week
for
would
me.
probably be good.
Okay, I'll send out a poll with a couple of dates around that time.
Thank you.
All right. Anything anybody want to say before I ask for a motion to adjourn? Okay, I just want to say good work, everybody. I think everybody appreciates the effort that you put in, even if sometimes they tell us off. But thank you, everybody. And if I could please have a motion to adjourn.
Well, thank you to Karen.
Yeah.
And Alex, thank you so much for everything you've been doing. You came on board without much experience in a lot of the things we do. And you're really just charging right ahead at a full gallop.
Well, thank
You'll
you,
have to
Janet.
enter the
That means a
Kentucky
lot.
Derby next year.
Yeah,
I know.
and I second Janet. You really are doing a great job, Alex, and we appreciate.
I'm starting
you
to feel
being here.
I'm starting to feel more comfortable in the role, and yeah, it's been a great experience for me so far, and I look forward to
Deep
spending
learning.
more time with y'all.
Yeah, you happen to have come at the time when we have so many contentious things in front of us and time-consuming ones. So a little bit of trial by fire, maybe. But
That's
you're doing
okay.
great.
Thank you.
Okay, so if I could have a motion, please, to adjourn,
Move to adjourn.
and a second.
A second.
Second.
Okay, Mike,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Wayne.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.